Today was the first day of the course, and we got told about the assessments and the goals of the unit. Now, in terms of the assessments, this forms part of it as a reflection, looking at the reporting of what's happened every day. But I'm going to, as I've mentioned in the introduction, I'm actually going to look at this from a different point of view. I'm actually going to look at both the reporting and the relating motion. Now, the goals of the unit I'm really looking forward to, because they actually align closely with the goals that I want to get out of it. Like, I know that Web 2 is the latest, and so I do want to, based on my knowledge prior, and I need to understand that more fully so that I can become more efficient in the classroom, especially because I do like to use ICT stuff. The main things that I got out of this today's stuff, we went through a lot of stuff today, and it's actually quite difficult to, especially on this first day, try and place everything. But one of the first things that we looked at was social constructivism, and as a theory of learning, I align myself closely with constructivism. I've done a unit prior to this one called collaboration, motivation, and it did look primarily at the role of collaboration and this notion of constructivism as a theory of learning. And in what I do on a daily basis, yeah, that is actually quite true. I see my students learn best if they're learning with their peers. So we went through this model of social constructivism with an interesting and low-tech demonstration of a metaphor, a really broad metaphor of teaching and learning based on unrelated cartoons. And that was a really good hands-on experience as to how collaboration can actually help. How, in my case, my group found a cartoon that did not make sense to us, this notion of the filling of the car. But another group saw that as their best example, as closely aligned to a learning metaphor. And I couldn't see that. But now, then listening to theirs, it broadened my mind on that concept. And to take that further, imagine what it's going to be like when we learn some new tech, or we struggle with a concept like constructivism. Let's go with that one. Yeah, and so you could easily see how, when you've got a whole lot of minds thinking together with a common purpose, it's going to produce better results. Might not necessarily change your mind, but it will provide a wider and deeper understanding. So that's quite a good aspect of social constructivism. It's also really closely aligned to how students learn today anyway, with all the information that we've been given. The antithesis of social constructivism, obviously, is that old model of learning, which is that didactic teaching knowledge. We looked at Web 2.0, which really sees the web as a user turn into a contributor. Web 2.0, in basic terms, is where a user turns into a contributor, and they have access to their own content, and they can author their own content. The other concept that we started looking at is blended learning systems. So not only is something this traditional chalk and talk type teaching, but you can also have an online component, as well as a group work component, as well as a more traditional component. And all of those things, when combined, create the whole picture of education, not just one style. And that's going to be interesting to see how you can add to and improve your own teaching through some of the technological means that we're going to be showing. R2D2 model also we looked at very, very briefly. We looked at reading today. It, from my understanding, goes reading, reflecting, doing, displaying, and it's kind of like looking at different pedagogies that you can use and assessing their evaluation. And you can evaluate them. In terms of my response, sorry, in terms of my, what is that word, relating? How do I relate it to my own practice? As I mentioned before, social constructivism does relate well with the Catechism model, and a lot of the techniques that we were using today is something that we try and infuse into our classroom. Now, what's going to make it interesting from here on in is this notion of using technology to help us with the collaboration, because one of the struggles that we have, or I have in my teaching methodology, is that everything, it's just very much simply group work, and it's not too, it is dynamic, but I'd like to see how technology can help improve the dynamic nature of the group work and the collaboration that my students go through. And hopefully the new understanding of wikis, blogs, and all those kinds of things are going to help me with that. Further relating to that, one of the biggest things that I've got at the moment is I get my students to do a reflective journal. And up until now, it's been, I've used OneNote and all these different ways to which I can make this journal, which is normally pen and paper, a shareable content that's electronic, that kids can have access to, and to create, images and all those kinds of things. And so that's my biggest issue in school at the moment. How do I make that better? So it'll be interesting to see over the next week how I can get some of the new information that we get and link it to that journal. Blended learning systems, again, I have used them, not very loosely, so I'll be interested to see more of that. The R2D2 model, again, I'm not so sure on that yet. I'll have to do my reading to find out how that relates. And PebblePad was the last thing that we went through to, and PebblePad is an e-learning system. It's a portfolio from my understanding, and I'm playing around with it today, and I'm not sure how it's going to fit in. So at this stage, a hell of a lot of questions, but I think I will have some answers very soon.